This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, April 1st, 2024. And no, there's no joke. Enjoy. Case file number 1545, written by Ferry Soir. Jackson, the boy erased from all memory. I want to preface this by saying that I wasn't a child when this happened. When my younger brother was in elementary school, he had a friend named Jackson. He was a cute little boy with brunette hair. I remember every day when my brother came home from school, he'd tell us about how he spent recess hanging out with Jackson and another little boy we'd call Leroy. I remember my parents saying that the name Jackson was super cute, and when they were looking for a place to move, we thought about moving to Jackson, Mississippi, which reminded everyone about his friend. Fast forward to last year. I brought up his friend Jackson, and nobody remembers him. My mom, my brother, my dad, they kept saying that he never had a friend or knew anyone named Jackson. But I explained all of the connections we made with his name. The town we were going to move to was named Jackson, my mom really liking his name, and my brother being in a friend trio with Jackson and Leroy. Still, nobody remembered him. It drives me crazy to this day because I swear he's real. My brother, mom, and dad remember Leroy, but not Jackson. The next time I visit my parents, I will see if I can find my brother's class photos. I don't remember if Jackson was in his class or in another class, and I'm not sure if my brother has an elementary school yearbook, but there has to be an answer out there. Case file number 1546, written by Bob Thomas. Mind-bending moments, cats, cars, and the unseen. Okay, so these two stories take place miles apart, but at almost the exact same time. For reference, I have two older brothers. One of them drives a truck professionally, just a couple of hours from where I live. The second lives at home with my parents and I. Our house has a connected garage with a door leading into the kitchen. We have 3 cats, so anytime we have the big garage door open, we have to be extremely careful not to let one of them outside. One day, while moving a bunch of stuff from our car outside, my brother and I had just come into the house and were standing in the kitchen. 2 of our cats, we'll call A and B, were sitting in the kitchen with us, while our third cat, C, was nowhere to be seen. Well, our mom walks in through the connecting door and starts yelling for us to grab C, because he's about to get out. We ran into the garage and were able to stop B from getting out, but I couldn't find C anywhere. When we come back in to look for him, he's dead asleep in a chair, completely oblivious to anything. I picked him up and he was still stiff from not moving for hours. My mom instantly got freaked out and swears it was him that she saw and even felt him at her feet. The thing is, A and B are both solid black cats, but C is a striped gray cat. There's no mistaking them even at a glance. This by itself was weird, but the news we got just a few hours later made it even stranger. My other brother had been driving his truck when he noticed a little red car beside him and started to come into his lane. He felt the car crash into his left side, so he pulled off to the right and into the back of a dump truck, crashing into the side of the ditch. Well, when the driver of the dump truck pulled him out of his truck to see if he was okay, he said it was fine. But when he asked if the people in the red car were alright, the guy said, "What red car?" It turns out there never was a red car in the first place. My brother swears he saw it and felt it crash into him, and he's not on any kind of drugs. He even passed the test perfectly right after that. This is my first glitch experience I've had. What makes this story really strange is that both members of my family saw and even physically felt events that never actually happened, or at least not in this universe. Case file number 1547, written by I'm Meow, the mysterious ice cream scooper. About 12 years ago, when I lived in Coney Island, New York City, 18 years old, living only with my grandmother who at the time was away at my aunt's house for a couple of days babysitting. On a normal evening when I get home from work, I plop down on the couch and start eating my Chinese food while watching TV. I finished my food and decided I wanted to eat some ice cream for dessert. I go to the kitchen, which is separated from the living room with a wall, so you can't see into the living room from the kitchen or the other way around. I grab what is a classic ice cream scooper with the big rounded end on it and a thick handle. I got the ice cream scooper and the ice cream out of the freezer. I open the ice cream container, which is almost full, as it has only been dug into once before this. While in the middle of me about to dig the scoop into the frozen ice cream, it was hard. The house phone rang. I stopped what I was doing and left the scoop inside the ice cream container, which was almost full, so basically lying on top of the ice cream. I answered the call, and it was someone from my grandmother. In the middle of me saying, Sorry, she's not here. I heard the ice cream scooper fall on what sounded like the floor. I hang up and walk back to the kitchen, looking down to the ground, in expectation that I would see the scoop on the floor. But nothing. I looked everywhere, literally looking in places that was not physically possible, such as a gap in between the stove and counter, checking by the phone even though I know I heard it in the kitchen fall. But nothing, and definitely not possible due to the large odd shape of the scooper, would not allow it to slip or roll between small spaces. And I knew I heard it fall in the kitchen. I was looking for so long that the ice cream was melting. I eventually gave up and opened the drawer to get a regular spoon. I scooped the ice cream and ate it. To this day, I never saw that ice cream scooper ever again. I don't know what happened that evening. Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 1548, written by Fabulous Rich 8974, the day reality rewrote itself before my eyes. Never thought this would happen to me, but here we are, and I had a witness. Today I was bending over cleaning something off the floor with kitchen wipes. I saw that the floor was clean, no more spill, and decided to wipe one more time to make sure it was disinfected. Suddenly, the spill was back, and I was smearing it all over the floor. I jumped back and shouted, "What the hell? Where did that come from?" My son was standing there handing me the wipes and said that the spill on the floor wasn't all clean. I said, "No, it was. I cleaned it and suddenly it was back. I was wiping the clean floor one last time to make sure it was germ-free, and suddenly the spill was back." He said he was watching me the whole time and didn't see me totally clean the floor. But the second that this happened, he was frozen, and then suddenly unfroze. It felt like everything stopped and then started within a small amount of time. So short, we can't perceive it happening. But I did, and I know others here have too. At that moment when I saw the floor was clean and then realized it wasn't, I was there, but it felt like my body was on autopilot, that I had left and came back within a few seconds. I felt off, and I also felt like time slowed down a bit, then quickly sped up. I don't think objects are disappearing and then reappearing. I think something is happening to us. I don't think the spill suddenly disappeared and then reappeared. I think I did. We are leaving and coming back, but when we come back to the same moment in time and space, something is a little different because we are coming back a few seconds earlier than we left. It's like I left after the spill was wiped and came back a few seconds earlier. Where are we going? I don't know. It's happening outside of our perception of time. Either we're all totally crazy and losing it, or having a collective episode of insanity, or something happening to us that we don't understand. Bonus file, written by Overhopeful, the spine-chilling tale of the vanishing dude. This happened a few years back at my college dorm. Roommate and I, both around age 19 probably, were coming back to the dorm after dark. It's one of those buildings where you have to scan your university ID card to get in. Unless someone from the inside lets you in, there's no other way. We walk up to the building and see someone maybe 10 feet ahead of us scan their card and go inside. The key here is that he is just far enough ahead of us to where as soon as he goes inside and the door shuts itself, we are there scanning in our IDs to open the door for ourselves. Once inside the lobby area, there is one elevator on either side. These elevators are maybe just another 10 feet from the entrance door we just walked in. As we walk inside the building, we see the person who went in before us walk inside the elevator, and the door is just shut as we approached it, the same elevator he just got into. I press the button, and to my surprise, the doors open instantly, like instantly. As soon as the doors closed, they were opening again, except this time there was nobody inside. I hesitated, but walked into the elevator and pushed my floor button. The energy between me and my roommate felt tense, and I didn't say anything as I was trying to rationalize what I just saw in my brain. My roommate spoke up first, saying, "Did you just see that guy?" and verified that I wasn't the only one who had seen it. We continued trying to come up with some kind of explanation and came to nothing. Even if the elevator guy only went up one floor, there was nowhere near enough time for the elevator to go up and come back down in time. Again, the doors closed with him inside mere seconds before they reopened after I pushed a button. Never experienced something like this since then. Still spooks me. Bonus file written by Toastmaster X. From my nightmares into reality. I had a recurring dream as a child, right into my teens, of me playing outside with friends. I would always be looking down at something on the ground. Sometimes I'd be playing with toys, when I look up to see 3 strange men burst from some trees or bushes, carrying guns, running towards me and shouting. The colors in this dream were always washed out and everything looked like a sepia browny green. The way the men ran creeped me out, hunched like beasts, but urgently trying to get to me, brandishing guns, sinister, and I instantly wanted to get away. Particularly because the scene would crop up at the end of entirely different dreams unexpectedly. I'd forgotten about the dream, and many years later when I was 29, I was at my brother's house in the country, on a field not far from his house, walking his dog. The field had been plowed, so it was rough underfoot. Other than the dog who had run ahead, I felt totally alone. I spotted something blue and plastic in the plowed earth, which looked like a toy. Funny to find that here, I thought. So I reached down to get it, lost my footing, and fell sideways, banging my head on a tough crop of dirt. I felt dazed, heard the shout of a man's voice, and looked up to see 3 strange men, hunched over and carrying rifles, charging towards me. I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing at first, and not knowing where the dog or my brother was, felt very alone. I shouted at them and clambered backwards, but they kept coming, still hunched over, looking sternly at me. The memories of my dreams came back and my mind was a wreck dealing with it, terrified. But this time it felt much more real, because it was. The men got to me before I could properly stand, laid their guns down and spoke to me. They were on their way to a hunt, to shoot pheasants. Saw me fall and said I didn't get up straight away, so they were running over to help. The odd hunched running was because they were trying to keep their footing on the plowed field. Even the colors matched my dream, because of my knocked head. They must have thought me odd because I didn't really speak back to them, because I was so surprised to see this nightmarish scene return to me more than a decade after I'd last dreamt it. Luckily, they were coming to help me after all. Case file number 1549, written by This Can't Be Thrown Away. A shark was chasing my car. I'm driving home late one night from work at about 1 a.m. I worked in the Alliance area of 35 in Fort Worth, and I lived in Denton. I'm driving down 35, and other than a few 18-wheelers in front of me, I am alone on the road. Anyone who is familiar with this stretch of highway, you know that it is super dark at night. No lights, no exits, just a few miles of road and country until you get to Denton. I'm about to change over from the left lane to the right. I look into my rearview mirror and there, lit in red by my taillights, is a giant shark. Swimming as if it were submerged in water, bearing down on me, jaws open, rows of razor teeth exposed, ready to strike. I screamed and jerked my head around to look out my window. Nothing. It was gone. No one behind me, no cars, no trucks, certainly no giant sharks. As if nothing just happened at all, I pulled over, shaking and sweating. It had all taken place in a fraction of a second, and I had no idea how to process what I had just seen. There was a shark in my rearview mirror that was inches away from ripping the crap out of the back of my car. The image still plays in my mind over and over. I'm not crazy. I have no history of mental illness, neither does anyone in my family. I had not, at that time, ever partaken in hallucinogens. I had never, and since then, still have never had any kind of hallucination like that. Anyone that I have ever told thinks I'm either lying or nuts, and I kinda hope I am. But I saw that shark, and it saw me, and it wanted my blood. Case file number 1550, written by I. Dade Marshall, 4 Friends' Eerie Encounter with a Time Warp. I was driving back to college from spring break with 3 other friends. We were all from the same hometown, and our university was roughly 4 hours away. As a precursor, none of us took drugs of any sort, and we were all on various sports teams with full rides for academics. We were the kids whose parents let them drive the Escalade or Range Rover back to college, and everything always went our way. Your typical Ivy Leaguer. Not always proud of this, but it's just to validate that we weren't your typical alien abductees crazy people. About 3 hours into the drive, we start noticing familiar signs that we saw hours ago. Confused, we just kept driving and ignored it. After about 10 minutes, we knew something was wrong. Since we were seeing all the same signs and landmarks we did 3 hours prior, we never got off the freeway, drove south the whole time, and nobody fell asleep. We drove 3 hours south, then out of nowhere, we were right back near the start. We figured since we left our hometown at noon, we would get to school by 4. We didn't get to school until 7, and never hit any traffic. It was like we went into a time warp or something, and it scared us so much that nobody said a word the rest of the trip. When we got to school, none of us said anything to each other or talked to each other for over a month other than the agreement never to speak about it. Case file number 1551, written by Jayla. The bizarre case of Julia's disappearing pregnancy. One night, I was at a friend's house and a mutual friend of ours came over. Let's call her Julia. Anyway, it became apparent to me as soon as Julia walked in that she was pregnant. And I mean way pregnant. The girl has always been really tiny, and she still was, except for a big round pregnant belly and larger boobs. It couldn't have been just weight gain because she still had skinny arms and a thin face. Basically, it was really obvious that she was preggers, and it couldn't have been anything else. Cue this awkward thing where I'm trying not to stare, wondering if I should congratulate her or show concern, because she's only 17 and not in a stable financial situation to raise a child. She says nothing at all, and neither does the friend whose house we're in. I tell my mother about this in confidence, because I just kinda need to tell someone about this whole awkward thing. A week later, my mother sees Julia at the store, comes back and tells me there's no way she's pregnant. She looks just as tiny all over as usual. Confused, I figured my mom must have seen someone else. So I call up the friend whose house we went to. She also has no idea what I'm talking about, even though she was right there with us on the night that it was so clear Julia was pretty far along. Fast forward to a year later. I haven't heard from Julia in a while, and get on Facebook to find out she's been in the hospital in labor with a child. I get prickles on the back of my neck and go way back on Julia's page until I find a message saying that she's coming over to my friend's house to hang out with us, exactly a year from that day. Case file number 1552, written by Spooky Molly. Lost in the Whispering Void. Well, there I was playing video games in my room with my dog lying next to me, and my boyfriend works on the computer in his office, which is opposite, but at a considerable distance since my house is quite big. I listened to him start having a conversation with a colleague over the headphones. Whenever he concentrates on talking, he starts walking around the house. So I'm not surprised to hear him walking away towards the kitchen. My hallway is long and echoes, and I heard him talking as he crossed it. And once there, he starts moving things in the kitchen. I thought he would want to eat something, as did my dog, who immediately raised his head listening to the noises and ran towards the kitchen. What happened next is that I immediately heard his voice much closer. He has a high-pitched voice, and I even got a little scared. I raised my head and saw him leaving the next room, still focused on the conversation. I thought my ears had deceived me, and that was where he was the whole time. Until I looked down the hallway and see my dog arrive, who stares at my boyfriend very puzzled, and turns his head a couple of times towards the kitchen and again to my boyfriend. Would he be so confused that he teleported away without realizing it? Did my dog come to see him in the kitchen? The poor guy seemed really confused. I don't know how to explain to him that sometimes the Matrix fails. Bonus file, written by Moon Fragment. The Tales of Teenage Terror. This happened when we were high school seniors, 17 and 18, and not too long ago, so I remember it well. For context, my brother and I are close in age, so it was common for us to share a friend group. In high school, we had this close friend who would come stay over at our house multiple times a week. The three of us were super close. We would always hang out in my brother's room, which was in the basement, basically encompassing the whole small basement, so there weren't any adjacent rooms. Now onto the incident. We were hanging out in his room after school, maybe 5 p.m. The three of us were sitting on the ground around my brother's coffee table, playing a card game or something, just chilling. Then out of nowhere from the corner of the room came for just a moment this incredibly loud, tortured screaming, as if someone, sounded like a man, was either in incredible pain or incredibly enraged, screaming at the top of their lungs. It sounded as if it were coming from a particular spot in the room. From where I was sitting, I was facing the spot. There was nothing there and no TV on. We weren't listening to music or even speaking loudly. For all intents and purposes, it sounded as if a portal were opened in the room in that spot, where the sound erupted from for just a moment, and then, just as suddenly, closed. All three of our jaws drop, and no one said anything for a moment, just all looked at each other for a beat. Then we all went, "What the hell was that?" All three of us distinctly heard it and reacted to it. Again, it was extremely loud. It made us stop what we were doing and just freeze in place. My brother went upstairs to check things out. The living room is directly above the basement. My father was watching TV, Game of Thrones I remember specifically, but it was at a normal, if not somewhat low volume, so not loud enough for us to hear downstairs. Sometimes if the TV was really loud in the living room, you could hear it in the basement. But it would sound like you imagine, like muffled TV sounds coming from upstairs. This scream was an isolated sound and specifically sounded like it came from the right corner of the room. So away from the upstairs TV, which would be directly above where we sat. And as if it was level with us, not coming from above. And of course it was loud and clear, not muffled in the least. Also, the scene in question did not match up with the sound or even screaming or shouting at all. If I recall correctly, it was either a dialogue scene or something like that. I think at the time we just laughed it off, but the more I think about it, the more unsettling it is. All three of us still recall it with the same details I presented, so it's not like I made it up or dreamt it. The other occurrences are not as interesting, but involve material evidence. They both occurred around the same time, with the same brother and friend. The first one is maybe more classic glitch. Our friend got a shirt from a fashion expo. It was a printed shirt that could only be found from this brand at this specific place, for the limited time of the expo. Since my friend would stay over so frequently, and we would go to and from school together, it was typical for him to bring a change of clothes, and inevitably leave something behind. So when I found the shirt in my drawer, I didn't think anything of it. I went to return it to said friend, but lo and behold, he already had his shirt. So then there were two shirts. No one else went to this expo. He only received one shirt, and no one else in his family had this shirt. The shirts were identical. Maybe not as interesting, but for some reason this made us flip our lid more than the other occurrence. It became a kind of shirtgate for a long time. The other occurrence I didn't recall until my brother mentioned it yesterday. It is somewhat more sinister than the first. Apparently, once me, my brother, and our friend were hanging out in my brother's room, the same basement room. We went out for a short while, maybe half an hour tops, and when we came back, my brother's glasses were on his bed, perfectly dismantled. They were not broken, crushed, or snapped, as what happens if you accidentally sit on them or crush them. They were neatly taken apart. We have no idea how this could have occurred either. Case file number 1553, written by Government Evening, 815, The Road to Nowhere. So, I go visit my friend who lives in a town about an hour away from me. I go there at least twice a month. Usually we just hang out with her kids, catch up, etc. Regular friend crap. I've been doing this for almost a year since she moved to this town. Sometimes, she sees me when she's in town, we go back and forth, whatever, you get it. I always take the back roads and not I-35, the closest highway. I know the way to and back from her place like the back of my hand. I've driven it so many times. Left out of her apartment, right at the stoplight, go through 2 stop signs left, then 45 minutes on CR 373 until I see the lights from my subdivision. After taking that last left, there's no stop signs on the CR. There is one yield sign. So I'm driving back last night and I hit a stop sign, not thinking much of it. The crossroad is unfamiliar, but I was jamming to music and smoking a cigarette, whatever. Not even 2 minutes later, another stop sign, but this one had no crossroads, just seemingly in the middle of the CR for no reason. A few minutes later, another stop sign, no crossroads, and again, 2 more times. After close to an hour, I was concerned I didn't see the lights from my subdivision, so I checked my GPS. It showed my location as having just left her apartment. I figured I took a wrong turn, so I just backtracked for close to an hour until I saw the Sefco station, where I normally take a left at. I called her and told her what happened. She laughed and said, "You just left like 10 minutes ago, you're crazy." I got creeped out and told her to stay on the phone with me. I drove my normal route home and saw 0 stop signs and arrived within 40 minutes. I know I didn't take a wrong turn. I swear I know that road so well. And the road I had just backtracked on suddenly had no stop signs. It's the same route I travel each and every time. No extra turns. I feel like I'm going crazy and I can't stop thinking about it. Case file number 1554, written by Responsible Table 895, The Backwards Runner on Interstate 95. My husband and I were on a road trip a few years ago. At the time, we preferred to travel at night, less traffic. We were in our early 20s and didn't mind all-nighters when we were on the Interstate Highway 95 heading south. We used to take this drive a few times a year, to the point we do not need a GPS. We were very familiar with it. Anyways, it's the middle of the night in one of the Carolinas. We're not in a big city, so any light in the sky, streetlight, headlight, would be really noticeable. The interstate is fairly empty at this time, roughly 2 a.m. I noticed an overpass and bridge that I don't remember being there. I notice my husband notices it too because he tilts his head and says, Before I can say that's new or I don't remember that, we notice a man is being illuminated by orange-looking lights, like a row of street lamps close together, while he's running. He has long curly hair and seems to be running at full speed. I mention the hair length because typically, if you're running with hair down, the hair trails behind you. Well, his hair was trailing behind him, but he was running backwards. Not like a backwards run, but like someone pressed a rewind button. His movements, his hair, everything. My husband and I would consider ourselves runners, and his form was what we noticed first. It looked like he ran forward, then someone rewinded it. As we drive under it, I turn around and don't see the bridge anymore, and my husband blurts out, "What the hell was that?" For the remainder of the drive, we tried to rationalize it, but it still freaks us both out. We call it a glitch, but it seemed more like a rewind. Where did the overpass and bridge come from? Where did it go? Where did the lights go? I will add that my husband is very geographically gifted and can remember places very well. A few days later, we are returning home, and you know what still isn't there? The bridge. Case file number 1555, written by Cleaches. The Mystery of the Christmas Stars. For Christmas, my partner gifted me 3 pairs of earrings all in one gift set, one of which was a pair of stars. We stayed at my mother-in-law's house for the holidays, so we were living out of bags and suitcases, and therefore I made sure I kept the earrings in their box on the bedside table so as to not lose them. It was a few days after Christmas that we decided to go on a girls' shopping trip in a nearby town. I chose to wear the star earrings I was gifted, but because I had already worn the other 2 sets, and they were already in my jewelry bag, this was the last set left in the original box. I put them on and left the empty box as a reminder to put all 3 sets back when we returned home. As we are leaving, my mother-in-law compliments my earrings and I jokingly do a pose to show them off. It's a few hours later and I'm in a store's changing room trying on clothes when I notice I'm only wearing 1 earring. I did not feel it fall out, but I checked the cubicle and retraced my steps around the store in hopes that it may have fallen out recently. My mother-in-law even acknowledges that one is missing once we reunite outside the store, so I know for sure I was wearing them before we left the house. I cut my losses and accept that it's likely it fell out hours ago and it would be impossible to find. So we continue about our day. I leave the lonely earring in as I didn't want to damage it in my purse, but I keep checking it's there every so often. When we return home, I'm sorting through the items I've purchased and going to put away things, when I see the earring box on the bedside table. It has 1 star earring in it, still hooked into the original card with the backing on it. I just froze, thinking I had lost my mind and only put 1 earring in this morning and misremembered, but grateful that I still had a complete set after all. I took the earring to the mirror to put it in, and there I see, I'm not wearing the other one, completely disappeared. I know it was there not even 5 minutes before, as I had looked in the car mirror just before I came into the house, but now it's gone. Somehow, I had left the house with 2 earrings in, came home with none, and found 1 still in packaging. Case also file 1545. Jackson, the boy erased from all memory. Usually when a child goes missing, it's a result of WITSEC, witness protection. At least, that's what I think is happening most of the time. But if it's just a memory though, well, we don't have Men in Black in reality, and they remember Leroy. So it's not a total erasure. It must be a multiverse event, where in this universe, Jackson just didn't exist, or at least your brother never interacted with him. And Jackson never interacted with Leroy, and so you never met him. Going back to check if he was indeed in the school, maybe, because otherwise if he just didn't exist, that would be a grand difference for sure. But if he does exist, then your brother just didn't interact with him. That's a more minor level difference that probably just is related to the multiverse. So, welcome to your new universe. Enjoy. Case also file 1546. Mind-bending moments. Cats, cars, and the unseen. It's like a ripple in soul connections. So you have a ripple in any medium, water, air, pressure waves, all that good stuff. But I'm talking about souls. We don't physically see it, and we can't feel it through our physical skin touch or anything like that. But it is a type of sensory input. It's like tugging on a guitar string or any kind of string. It'll vibrate and oscillate, depending on what happens. If it's something that's very traumatic, then the vibration will be very strong. And your subconscious has to use this data and try to interpret it, figure out what the hell, well, something tugged it very hard, what happened. I don't think it's the same as communicating over text. Your subconscious doesn't know exactly what happened, just that something crazy happened to someone you loved and tried to interpret it. But then for your other brother who saw the car, now, was that a figment of the imagination, or was it really there and he switched multiverses? But then the question is, he would have died in the original universe. So did your mom feel the soul transfer in the new universe, the new mom, the one that you always knew, but in this new universe where now you're interacting with your brother? It's pretty confusing, but basically, your older brother jumped from the original universe to the universe that you've always known, and in that universe, your mother felt that soul tether connection as he was transferred in to the new body of your brother, your older brother. If you follow along to that ramble, kind of makes sense, because when you transfer over, you keep those memories. And similar things happened in this world. The only difference is there was no red car. But that's what initially caused the crash to begin with. But then it makes you wonder, why did he crash in this universe? Did he see what happened to the version of himself in the original universe? And that's what caused, it's almost like a catch-22. Cause and effect is losing coherence. Huh. I have to reset after this one. Okay, Salsa File 1547. The mysterious ice cream scooper. Damn, that's hard to say. So I guess a ghost or a shadow being, some entity within the casual multiverse realm, trying to penetrate through to this universe to steal ice cream. Honestly, that's the sanest explanation of a glitch that I've ever heard. Even ghosts want ice cream. Now time for the quote of the day. Skiing consists of wearing $3,000 worth of clothes and equipment and driving 200 miles in the snow in order to stand around at a bar and drink. PJ O'Rourke. You know, it's funny, reading this quote, what pops into my mind is the Dumb and Dumber scene where they go to the Alps or something to bring the girl back her briefcase, and they're in this, ski lounge or something and just drinking at the bar. That seems to be what's involved often. Honestly, I would love to go skiing at some point. Have any of you ever gone skiing? Or snowboarding? Maybe snowboarding would be more my style. I don't know. I'd have to try it out. Just in the beginner course, ease into it. Okay, Salsa File 1548. The day reality rewrote itself before my eyes. So this is an interesting concept of disappearing object phenomena, where I think items really do vanish from the universe. The universe processing centers lose track of the index file or misconstrue it and then has to be repaired, and for that moment in time, the object doesn't exist. It can't be reloaded in from memory. So in this case, it was in your cone of vision and then it just vanished. Maybe for a brief second you looked away, and your kid did too, and then just back like that. Of course, that's a returning object phenomena. But they are one and the same, I believe. Now, sometimes maybe we blip out. Our perception of reality at least can. I wonder if the universe can lose track of us in the same way. When the soul transfer process is initiated or ongoing, having a soul transferred into you, maybe reoccupying or merging with your soul, which may all just be one soul, but it's recombining a part of it, and that process might be jarring, and in some cases causes perception issues and maybe a reset in time too, I don't know. Case notes for the bonus file. The spine-chilling tale of the vanishing dude. So, tethered to the last story, can people lose coherence and the universe loses track of them entirely? Yeah, apparently so, when it comes to elevators especially. It's not often the case in any other event outside of space-time portals, but is that what's happening here? They're in an elevator and then a space-time portal moves them somewhere else? I wonder from their perspective what happens. The only time we had a first-person perspective of someone that was in an elevator and then something went wrong was they exited the elevator and they were on the same floor they were supposed to be, but it wasn't the same universe. Then they went back and they came back to the original universe. So elevators almost seem like a hub to different multiverses. You press a button, you don't even know if you're going to the right universe. Of course, we're reading these stories, but they're from a pool of billions of people. So the odds that something happens to you if you go on an elevator are still astronomically low. But if anything was going to happen to you, an elevator is probably a good place to start if you want to chase after them. Like people that chase after tornadoes. Well, just take a lot of elevator rides and see what happens. Report in if anything does go awry. Case notes for the bonus file. From nightmares into reality. So this is serious evidence of replay theory. That the concept that we've already lived the life we're going to live, and now we're just re-experiencing it as a movie. So we still have the illusion of free will. We still had it initially, but now we're just living the replay. Watching a game you already played. The highlights of a football match or something like that for people into sports. I'm into gaming, so for me it's just, well, you're just watching a replay of the game. And I do that all the time in Overwatch because it's good to learn. And maybe that's why we do it. Maybe we're trying to understand why we made the choices we made. It's the only thing that could fit to explain this if we want to preserve free will. Because if we accept that the multiverse exists and there's quantum foam and every possible thing that can happen happens, then the future, there isn't just one future. There's a gazillion Googleplex futures. Almost infinite. So how could your mind know which one the universe you're in now would result in? It's impossible unless there's replay theory. Now time for the quote of the day. Excess on occasion is exhilarating. It prevents moderation from acquiring the deadening effect of a habit. W. Somerset Maugham. You have those videos on YouTube where people engage in 10,000 calorie challenges or something like that, or go to buffets and try to eat as much as they can, and I think on occasion is the key word. That's a good idea. Live life to 120% on some days, or like 1,000% on some days, but then return to baseline. There was a saying, life is like a bowl of oatmeal, where mostly it's bland, but still pretty good, at least oatmeal with some brown sugar in it, right? But then sometimes there's dates in it, or cherries, or blueberries, and those are the exciting days that you really, you want to ham up. But life can't be blueberries every single day. Although, you can binge on blueberries, so you can have quite a few of them. But you have to have a baseline that's just maple oatmeal. Case notes of file 1549. A shark was chasing my car. One of the most peculiar glitch stories I've ever read. Most notable because you have no history of hallucination, nor does your family. No history of mental illness, no alcohol involved, no drugs. It is exceptionally rare to have a hallucination of something so wild only happen once. If it was an aberration of your brain, you'd think it would happen more than just one time. To never have it repeat again makes me think that this really was a glitch in the Matrix. If it was a glitch, what we know about multiverse sight, seeing other universes as they are now, in relation to your geographic area and time, it's all happening concurrently, then maybe it's multiverse sight from a multiverse universe that is so far away that in that universe, in the area right now, driving on a road, it's actually full of water, maybe the ocean and the shark is just swimming there? And I mean, yeah, there are universes that are exceptionally different than what we have now. Universes where the planet Earth doesn't even exist, or exists as a molten ball of rock because a meteor crashed into it. Maybe a universe where climate change went truly extreme, and now there's just an ocean of water where you are. Something like that is the only thing I can think of that makes any sense. Case notes of file 1550. 4 friends' eerie encounter with a time warp. Yeah, so this is just a classic mega space-time portal. And they're happening so often now that it's almost, if you go on a long road trip and nothing wonky happens, you don't move around in space and time just a little bit, it's almost like that is the weird part. If it doesn't happen to you, that's strange. If it does, well, that's just another road trip. So enjoy your portals, because they're popping all over the place. But almost always when you're driving, it's still a weird part about that. It's like they're positioned on roads deliberately. Case notes of file 1551. The bizarre case of Julia's disappearing pregnancy. Okay, so you peered ahead in time exactly 1 year, and your subconscious used that information to recreate a scene of how Julia will be later on. It's strange, isn't it, how our subconscious really governs everything. Our conscious reality is fed in through our subconscious. The subconscious is almost like the chef that is cooking up reality for us to experience and enjoy. I guess it's not that strange if you think about how weird our dreams are. Reality is a bit more concrete, but not always. Now time for the joke of the day. Why shouldn't you tell a legume your secrets? They always spill the beans. Yes, they're always going to give your secrets away, so just eat them instead. Pretty good for you, lots of fiber. Case notes of file 1552. Lost in the Whispering Void. Quack standard, but this is the pup standard. Imagine how confused your dog was, looking back and forth, almost like out of a cartoon, you know what I mean? glitches can be comedic, too. Maybe not so much for you, but for everyone else. Case notes of the bonus file. The Tales of Teenage Terror. So yeah, one common theory given for strange noises in old homes are pipes. Old pipes that creak and warp and bend because of the metal contracting and they're old, so maybe they're not screwed in correctly, stuff like that. But that would be fairly consistent. You would hear it often, not just a single time. So I don't think it can be that. In short, it would be a recurring event. And then we got a multiverse switcheroo. Of course, you never know from which universe it's coming. It doesn't have to be necessarily adjacent. But I think it's more likely to be, probably easier to travel that distance between those universes. It's just a funny comedic aspect to it because in those universes, the shirt is just gone. The item, I don't believe matter can ever just be created. Well, it takes energy if it does, but in terms of just switching things about, the universes aren't creating or adding new energy to them. So in those cases, stuff is just moving about. And some people are losing stuff all the time and they never get anything back, like yours truly. But the last story is the strangest one. To have an item like that is just morphed from its components, disassembled. But it wasn't DOP. I guess the universe reconstituted its originating parts. Why stop at that point and not go down further to the molecules? But no, it's just like the component pieces in manufacturing. It's very odd. It's like a morphed object phenomenon. Now time for the quote of the day. The only thing that scares me more than space aliens is the idea that there aren't any space aliens. We can't be the best that creation has to offer. I pray we're not all there is. If so, we're in big trouble. Ellen DeGeneres. So I like this quote besides the idea that we aren't the best that creation can offer. Well, yeah, I mean, I hope we're not all there is, but I don't think we're bad. I think we've made great progress, and we're still babies when it comes to the age of the universe. The age of a possible species. We are just infants. We're barely out of diapers, so give it time. We're getting better at lightning speed in the cosmic scale. I think we'll make it. Case notes of file 1553. The Road to Nowhere. Just classic spacetime portals on roads. And there's an interesting idea I saw postulated in that spacetime portals are placed by aliens because they're so specifically placed. They're either placed by some alien entity, extra-dimensional entity, or our own governments. One or the other. I don't believe they can possibly be random. But when you cross into one, you go to their ship first. Then they study you, they study the car, whatever they want to do, and then you're ported back. The memory's wiped in those events, and then you're back here. It seems more of a new phenomenon. Maybe they're doing this instead of going directly to abduction. Aliens would develop technology over time too, just like us, right? It's not like they come here and they're instantly at the max level of the technology tree, like in Civ 6, where they're maxed out. Who knows how far the technology tree goes, and if there even is a limit. So maybe they're just inventing new technology too, and now they have this, so they're using it. It certainly would explain the frequency when driving, and very seldom anywhere else. Case also file 1554. The Backwards Runner on Interstate 95. So maybe a soul transfer process, causing a glitched out experience? But then the bridge anomaly indicates a multiverse crossover or multiverse site. It's a melding of different glitches coming together, but none fit on their own. And honestly, it's just creepy as hell. Something about backwards running of time, when you are still sane, and especially if you have a witness, you know what's going on is real. Phew, very creepy. And even describing the hair like that, this one sits deeper in me. Case also file 1555. The Mystery of the Christmas Stars. Honestly, this just feels like some entity is messing with you, a poltergeist of the Christmas cheer. It's like those Instagram reels where the pranks are very wholesome and they just make you doubt yourself. There's one guy who does pranks where, I think it's from an old show, they're very wholesome. They just kind of gaslight you, but then the revelation comes in, where like, he sprays a taxidermy animal, puts it in a box, and then the animal comes to life. Or there's a slim package, and then he opens it on the table, and he pulls out a bowling ball or something that could never possibly have fit in there. Stuff like that. Very wholesome, good pranks. Nothing like the TikTok stuff where people go around like harassing others and harassing fast food workers. I hate those. It's now time for the quote of the day. You talk to God, you're religious. God talks to you, you're psychotic. Doris Egan. If God exists or the Creator appears before you, but no one else, would you tell anyone else? Because you would kind of seem crazy. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. It's impossible even for yourself to know, because reality is being processed by our own mind, our own brains. Now, I fully believe reality is objective. Some people think that everything's just going on in your mind and nothing's real. Well, reality is objective, or at least some form of it is. Maybe it's a simulation, but there is a real reality somewhere. Anyways, not to go too far down that tangent, in some version, but knowing it is very challenging and maybe impossible, at least from our position in the universe right now. If God really does exist and wants to talk to you, maybe there's no way to do it in a way that could be definitively certain for other people as well. So maybe that's why he doesn't, I don't know. Either way, if God talks to you, I mean, I don't think you'd be crazy. I'd be a mixed bag, I guess. I wouldn't know. But it would be interesting to hear. But yeah, a lot of people would just say you're crazy if that happens, so I don't know. Also, it depends on what God says. If God says, hey, good work, bacon apple pie, I don't think people would have too much problem with that. If he says, if he appears and says, start World War III, maybe people would have a problem with that one. So it depends on what he says too. Yeah. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, bacon apple pie, Kinetic Symphony signing off.